do you want to talk to Otangelo? I'm not sure if you know about him. I think he's been a regular call-in on most of our shows, but it seems to be something that if you've seen him call in once, you've probably seen him call in on most of the shows. But I think he does have a slightly different question for us.
Yeah, let's go ahead and hear it out.
Okay, so here we go. Otangelo, hi. You're on with Erin and Zod, and you have a question about would the host become believers and become Christian if God was proven to exist?
Right. Hello, Zod. Hi, Erin.
Hi.
Thanks for taking my call. Yes, that's
We're going to give you 10 minutes.
Correct.
So would we become believers if it was proven that God existed? Is that your question?
Yes, correct. And I'm not talking just a general God, but in special Christ, the God of the Bible.
So if it was proven, is that what you said? If it was proven that the Christian God was real, would we become Christian?
Yes, correct.
So you're basically like, if it was proven to be true, would you accept the truth, or would you become an adherent to Christian doctrine and worship that God in such a way that was proven to be necessary?
Yes, I would say that these would be two very different and distinct positions that you could take. You could acknowledge God's or Christ's existence, but still choose to live your life on your own as if he wouldn't exist. And on the other hand, you would have the choice actually to surrender to him and receive him as Lord and Savior and follow him.
Okay, so my answer to this is pretty straightforward. I think I'm pretty risk averse. So if the God that has a hell was real and it was proven to me, I'd probably become a Christian again. But I wouldn't be happy about it because I'd be doing it to avoid the pain. But I don't think that that's a good way to try to get somebody to choose you by threatening them. I think that's a little bit of a different answer. But I'm trying to be honest with the fact that I don't want to burn forever. But I think that there are so many different iterations of the Christian God that it would be pretty tricky to prove to me that the Christian God that believes in this exact type of hell and heaven, and I'd also, you'd also have to maybe demonstrate the means of salvation, and there's a lot more to it than just like, if it's real, would you follow it? My instinct is that I would probably do whatever I needed to do to get hurt, but I don't know. It sounds like a pretty shitty situation.
Yeah, but I think you gave a significant answer here, Erin, because I think this is a good reason why God actually isn't proving himself to the world, because then many would think exactly as you answered now. They would see themselves count against their will. They would accept him just out of fear to go to hell. And that wouldn't permit a relationship of love and trust. No. And I think that would be
I think we're missing where the disconnect is in this being a relationship of love instead of fear. Mm-hmm. I think it's pretty evident that where this becomes a relationship of fear is where, theoretically, assuming God exists, he presents you with a proposition where you have to accept him based on fear. So it sounds to me like what you're saying is the fact that he's presenting this in terms of a threat of hell is not the problem. The problem is that if he informed you of your choice, then you would possibly accept him on, I don't know, that you would accept him for bad reasons. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, it would basically be a bad reason, because God aims is to have a loving relationship with us based on his goodness, and not just.
So are you accusing God of giving us bad reasons to love him to begin with? Because it sounds like you're just basically saying, if If we were given an informed choice, we would react based on the options God gave us, and that would be a problem to you. So it sounds like you're accusing God of giving us bad reasons to accept him.
Now, what I am saying is that if God would reveal himself to us in a way that there would be no doubt anymore in regards of his existence, and everything else would be the same, that means we would know that we would have to choose between going to heaven or to hell, and we would simply choose him because we wouldn't want to go to hell. That wouldn't be a good reason which God actually wants. He wants to have a loving relationship with us and not just a relationship.
I'm going to mute you for a second. What evidence do you have that God wants a relationship with us? Or what evidence do you have that God is real? Because this is an interesting hypothetical that gets asked of atheists a lot. But I mean, hypotheticals are one thing, but like, what are you bringing to the table here besides just a hypothetical?
Yes, that is not actually the reason why I called in. I mean, I can come up with the Bible, with evidence in the natural world, which points to a designer and things like that.
Okay, so but
then,
one,
of course, you can say just I don't believe it, and that would go the common route of the usual conversations debating of God's existence. But that wasn't actually the point why I called in.
Okay, so what is the point of you calling today?
Well, the point is, I had recently actually a conversation with an atheist, and he said, well, I met you on YouTube over a year ago, and I've listened to many of your streams and arguments and so forth, and I think that no atheist has actually ever provided or presented counter arguments to refute what you say. But this guy, nonetheless, he continues an atheist. So basically, he acknowledged that theism is the better worldview compared to naturalism or to strong atheism, but nonetheless, he keeps being an atheist. So I conclude by
sorry. Are you saying that? I'm going to mute you again. So are you saying like that this atheist friend of yours is admitting to being a dishonest non-believer? Would that be the right way to say it?
You could maybe describe it like that. But what I want to say by this is that in my understanding that acknowledging or following God or the God of the Bible isn't just something which depends on evidence. It is also something which has to do with will, with what we actually want. And I mean, I have heard, for example, Matt Dillahunty many times saying, well, even if the God of the Bible would be proven to exist, I wouldn't follow him. I wouldn't acknowledge him or worship.
So I'm extremely uninterested in what other people have said about this question. If you want me to answer your original question, I can. I think we pretty much came upon a very poor reason for God not revealing himself to us, and one that becomes self-defeating and does pretty evidently show that God is it basically is saying that God's presenting us with a dilemma, and that dilemma is a bad reason for making a choice, therefore God hides from us. And that just feels like a long path toward explaining why God's not an evident part of reality, which is something I would expect religions to do, because they have to explain why their proposition is not part of evident reality. As far as your original question, would I believe in God if he were proven? Obviously, I would believe that in the existence of whatever I saw. And then second, would I align myself with it or accept that being? I think there are a few things that we need to acknowledge about this whole question. First, it's a little presumptuous to ask because it's putting the cart before the horse. I've noticed apologists or certain types of Christians have a tendency, I don't know where it comes from, if it's from some form of frustration over people not accepting their belief, or just seeing their belief as being more pivotal in everybody's life than it really is, of asking people these hypothetical questions about what we would do if it were proven. And I just don't see the fruitfulness in asking that question. But if it were posed to me, my take on it would be that it's a more complex proposition than, yes, I would believe it and agree with it. Number one, for the reasons Erin said, we would have to understand the morality behind aligning ourselves with this God. But beyond that, it's not just a package deal. I think if God would just be a being presenting itself to me, and it would reveal itself to me in layers. I would have to come to individually understand parts about this being, including what its physical attributes were, what its nature was, what it wanted from me. And it wouldn't just be any kind of lump, blah, this is the Christian God. I would have to learn its personality firsthand as I interacted with it. If I found that it started to align with the Bible, then yeah, that would start to direct me toward thinking it was the God described in the Bible. But that would be a process. And like Erin said, also, I believe there are different versions of the Christian God. There are different ways that different Christians see God. And so I would need to, before I could even answer this as a hypothetical, I would need to see which version of that was even presented to me. So really, this is just a big, long process of getting to know what would basically be an extremely intelligent and extremely powerful alien being, and decide how I'm going to react to it. And so there's a ton to that. The best way I could put it to you, to describe my reaction, would be to present you with an alternative scenario. If something outside your religion started to present itself to you, what thought process would you go through before you started believing it was true, then knowing what you believed about it and how much you wanted to react to it? I think you would probably understand that was a very complex process that would not lead you to jump to any real quick conclusions, and that you probably could not answer hypothetically. And so I think you need to grant that to people who don't believe in your specific religion, and not expect them to come to quick, easy hypothetical answers, accepting a lot of things that you've accepted as packaged dogma, because that doesn't automatically come along with belief in a deity in general, or even belief in a specific kind of Christian God or whatever. I don't know if that clarifies anything, but I think there is a lot of, not necessarily intentional, but a lot of presumption behind this question that puts a burden on us to accept a shift in our thinking without evidence that you wouldn't necessarily, I don't think, take with any other being other than the God that you've already accepted based on a body of doctrine. So that's my reaction to the question.
I was clear in my initial question when I said I am talking here about the Christian God, which revealed himself in the Bible. So by reading the Bible, and he would appear to you and say, I am the God which revealed himself in the Gospels, which is described there with that character and with these attributes described there. So that would be a very specific characterization. What I believe is that God, he reveals himself sufficiently to those that want to believe, and he hides himself sufficiently to those which want to live autonomously to him. And that permits those which do not want to have him to have their life the way they want it, and those that actually want to seek and find him.
Okay, so I feel like all around, like, you're just you're not, your presupposition going into this is that we've all been given the correct amount of evidence. So if we weren't accepting it, it's because of some sort of, heart issue, or however you would put that. So I mean, I think that if you're not willing to grant that we are being honest in our responses and in our intellectual, endeavors on trying to figure out what is true in the world, there's not much more to talk about. If you can't grant us, that's a pretty small thing to grant somebody, is that they're being honest with you.
And I kind of feel sorry for anybody who is dealing with a proposition that's so lacking in evidence that they need to rely on anything that falls even close to I can't bend this spoon right now because the people in the room are giving negative energy. By the time you're blaming somebody's attitude on the fact that a phenomena is not manifesting itself, you're kind of in bad company as far as what your proposition sounds like. And it, from the outside, it really reeks of obvious excuse making. And you're building I don't think you're doing this intentionally. I've been there. I get a lot of the pressures that go into making your mind go in these directions. So I'm not trying to presume what you're doing or why, but functionally, what your explanation does is takes a worldwide reaction to an unproven phenomena that spreads based on basically natural means of indoctrination or evangelism or whatever. Some people accept it and some people don't. You're taking that and overlaying an explanation on it. There's no reason for us to think that's true. So the real problem becomes for us, we're being approached as if we have disingenuous intentions. Other people are not necessarily going to appreciate that. But for your side, the challenge for you is that does not give you anything to engage other people with. When an argument leaves you no options other than to preach at somebody or storm off angry, or just get mired down in some kind of totally unprovable conversation where you're just representing their intentions to them, you're not giving yourself a lot of room for conversation with outsiders, and you're not opening doors that's going to lead to people believing you.
I have one more question for you, Otangelo, just along this. I would like you to answer that. Do you think that we are honest? Otangelo?
Is the way that you interpreted it. I am just talking based on
I'd like you to do you think that Zod here and I are being honest when we give our answers, or just in general, do you think that we're honest? Yes or no? I think we have our answer. All right.
Yes, the call was interrupted, so I didn't.
Okay. Okay, I'll give. Did you hear my question? I would just like a yes or no answer, please. Do you think that we're being honest?
No, I didn't hear you. Yes, okay. No, I didn't hear your question.
That's the very last time I'm going to ask, and then I'm gonna let you go today. Do you think that we are honest? That we're being honest?
Well, I cannot. I cannot evaluate that because I don't know up to what point you have done your epistemological investigation and on what grounds that you are having the position that you have and your conclusion. So since I do not have that information, I cannot give you an honest answer on that. I would have to have a longer conversation.
Okay, so I'm going to let you go today. My advice to you, Otangelo, is just if you're going to have these conversations with atheists, which I know you do a lot, I've seen your conversations. I think that you're going to get further in the conversation and get more out of the conversation if you extend that. What is the charitability, like the idea of being charitable and listening to your interlocutor and giving them the benefit of the doubt that we are at least trying to be honest with it, because I don't think you're going to get anywhere when you have that presupposition that like Zod had said this already, that like you're basically it's not worth talking to somebody if they're not going to believe what you say. So that's it. We tried. Thanks for calling. It's frustrating. I
don't know that what he says amounts to dishonesty, but it's bad intentions. We would not accept God even if he were revealed to be true. There really is absolutely no reason that a God would need to not clearly manifest to everybody just for that reason. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know, in a natural world, some people are going to accept an unproven proposition and some are not. And so when you just say that there's some reason where God reveals himself to these people therefore they have good reason to believe in him. But that revelation isn't something you can show anybody, and all the people with negative Nelly attitudes aren't going to have it revealed to them. You're basically admitting you have nothing to work with. That's the way I look at it. And yeah, there's so much back and forth in all these answers, and they get presented in so many words or these questions that it just, you end up swimming. And like you said, you had to keep muting him to bring the conversation back onto task. Otherwise, there is no yes or no answer. There's only essay answers that go in various directions.
Yeah.
And we keep getting different answers that generally contradict themselves depending on which part of the conversation is being addressed. And so on one hand, he'll say that God doesn't reveal himself for one reason. On another case, it's for another reason. He will say that God wants a loving relationship. I don't know.
I was gonna, so a couple of things that I've heard him talk a lot before, and I knew he was gonna, I kind of knew where he was coming at from that. So like I tried to answer as honestly as I could, and it did seem like if you give an answer, then there's gonna constantly, the goalpost gets moved, and like it just kind of can go around in a circle forever and ever. But oh shoot, I just lost my train of thought. I did want to talk to him, but that was like 17 minutes or something, and I don't think we got very many answers out of him. So I don't know.
No, all you can do, I think, is glean something from the conversation that is illustrative for the people listening. And as long as you can do that, hopefully it helps any of you watching in conversation. But this would have done nothing but led us further in circles than it already did.
Yeah, it's basically just choosing like when to call it quits.
Yeah.